Anyway, who's next? Yes.
Jen?
You have a question? Now, is this a follow-up to our conversation the other night? Or different?
This morning.
Okay, this morning. Okay, all right.
Yes, and I appreciate your help on understanding many things.
Good.
My question was, you mentioned unequally yoked.
Unequally yoked?
Yes.
Okay.
And based on my background, so I've heard, my understanding was it has to do with marriage, who you marry. But listen to your teaching this morning, it seems like it's more than that. It covers more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And now I got confused.
Well, I don't think it should necessarily confuse. All right, let's just look at it in terms of marriage. Is it a good idea for a believer to marry an unbeliever? It's not a good idea, is it? Well, because it creates all kinds of problems, doesn't it? And now you're in a marriage covenant, and now you're unequally yoked, and there's going to be this constant struggle. Can it work out? I'm not going to say it can't. I'm just going to say it's going to be incredibly difficult and very trying. So it's not a good idea for someone who is not of the faith to be married to someone who is of faith, or vice versa. But expanding it beyond that, the concept, the principle is, all right, let me back up a little bit. I gotta run around Mount Sinai a little bit. Got the official cup that says so. If you go back to the beginning in the garden, remember the two trees in the middle of the garden, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. One produced life, one produced death. And the one that produced death, the Creator said to man, don't eat it because it'll kill you. There's something in it that'll kill you. And that tree is characterized as being a mixed tree. Two things that are opposite being mixed together, good and evil. And this is going to go back to your question. And the Creator said, don't eat that. There's something in that fruit that'll kill you. All right. So then the idea going forward is that if you've got a good seed and you plant it in your field, you don't sow some other kind or some other species of seed in that same field. This is in Leviticus 19, I think it is, Deuteronomy 20, 21, somewhere in there. I can't recall just right off the top of my head. But you're not supposed to sow mixed or mingled seed in the same field or in the same vineyard, because the Creator says, to condense it down, it's defiled, it's corrupt. All right? So he gives us natural things like that to teach us of spiritual things. Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians 15. First the natural, then the spiritual. You have the natural things to teach us of spiritual concepts. So when Paul talks about not being unequally yoked, he is saying that if you and I have been born again, and by the way, when we are born again, Peter says it's of an incorruptible seed, because that is who the Messiah is like, or that's what the Messiah is likened as being, that incorruptible seed. The Word of God is a seed, according to the parable of the sower, right? So when the sower goes out to sow, he's only sowing one kind of seed, because it's the Word of God. There's only one Word of God. There's only one good seed. The good seed is the seed of Abraham in Galatians 3, who is the Messiah. But then likewise, if you are Messiahs, you are the seed of Abraham and heirs according to the promise. Are you with me so far? All right. So there's only one good seed, because there's only one Word of God. There's only one Messiah. There's only one body of Messiah. And so, taking all that I've talked about into consideration, the good seed, the truth, the Word of God should not be mingled with something that's false. There's a lot of false teaching now. There's a lot of people who think that there are multiple paths to the Creator, that you can be this religion or that religion or that religion. It doesn't matter what religion you are. As long as you're on this quest to find God, eventually He'll bring you to Him. But Messiah says, No one comes unto the Father except by me. Messiah says there's only one path that leads to life, and it's straight, and it's troublesome, it's very narrow, but it's the one and only way that leads to life. It's not broad. All right, so again, taking all those things into consideration, when Paul talks about that we should not be unequally yoked, he goes on to say, what fellowship does light have with darkness, or Messiah with Belial? So he's obviously talking way beyond just marriage. He's talking about if we are to be the light of this world, then why should we mingle with darkness? Now, we're to be in the darkness, but distinguished from that darkness. But we're not to mix with and mingle with that darkness. If we are representatives of the Messiah, then we should not be in lockstep with those who are anti-Messiah. So the short answer to your question is yes, it goes well beyond marriage. Marriage is just one situation where we find why it's difficult for those who are of the incorruptible seed to become one with those who are not. It's not conducive to life. And when we start mixing with things that are darkness, we start mixing with things that are corruptible, when we start mixing with these things that are associated with Belial, the tendency is not for them to conform to our way of thinking, but for us to conform to their way of thinking. And there is the death. There's the corruption. There's the destruction. So I hope I cleared it up a little bit. I still have a book I need to give you. All right?